to meet you.
Good to meet you.
You might hear my dogs in the background. I locked them in the other room, but they can be very, very whiny.
We'll edit them out.
Okay, cool.
Or edit them in. One of the two. So you were approached season 6 and 7, and you turned it down. You turned it down because it wasn't convenient, or was there any other things going on in your head where you were like, I'm afraid that this is not the cool thing to do, or it might hurt my career?
Well, up until 7, I hadn't actually seen Inkmaster. I heard about it, and I think I'd seen 1 or 2 episodes, but I'd never really, I hadn't sat down and watched it all the way through.
Right.
So it's kind of on the mindset of it's not real tattooing. It doesn't really have anything. You know what I mean? I didn't really have I didn't really know anything about that world at all, which is, and looking back on it now, even going through season 8 and then also hosting a show, I still don't know very much about that world. Right. A lot of what they don't show you as a viewer is that, you get these, the viewer gets these tiny little clips that are all produced and put together and condensed, whereas we've spent this long time together, and so what the viewer doesn't get to see is, a room full of tattooers getting to pick apart tattoos and art, and, having those conversations. So the viewer only sees those moments of contention or those heated moments, but they, because it's not interesting to see all the intellectual debate or just talk about art in general or appreciation for each other's art. So,
or I love Gia's tattoo. It's no, what don't you like about it? Tell us.
Yeah. Tell us what you don't like.
If you don't tell us, we will weave some conversations together to make people think you don't. So I definitely remember reading something about how you had went to art school in Portland, Oregon, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for a short time, but yeah, absolutely.
What school did you
go to? I would agree with that. PNCA, Pacific Northwest College of Art.
Gotcha.
It's one of the few, I guess, colleges that have a full-on, or had, I don't know if they still do anymore, but illustration department that went directly, they had kind of jobs contracted, with Dark Horse Comics
nice.
And stuff like that right out of their program. So
that's great. So how'd you like Portland?
Well, it's kind of funny because I really loved Portland a lot for everything but tattooing.
Right.
So there's a lot of great tattooers out there, but ultimately it's an oversaturated market because of the way the state handles the industry. So they only accept schools unless you can prove you've been tattooing for, at the time that I was there, it was 4 years through taxes that you filed with the IRS.
Right.
Which, what tattooer has that or had that back then?
Right.
This is 10 years ago. So, but anyways, so, I wasn't really interested in the tattoo scene there, so I left for the East Coast. I did a traditional apprenticeship, which I didn't realize at the time was traditional in the sense that it wasn't they were harder to get because I kind of just fell into mine. So,
yeah.
And that was 15 years ago, and that was in North Carolina, and so by way of a bunch of different adventures and a couple of years, I ended up in Portland to go to school.
A few things. So you were in Portland, Oregon. You went to school. How many years did you go to school there?
1.
1 year, and then what would you say that you spent a lot of time drawing or learning in that particular school?
Well, I guess the main focus was illustration, and then honestly, I spent a lot of time in sculpture class.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so I think if I had stayed in school and had not dropped out and went to tattooing, I probably would have switched more to sculpture.
That's awesome.
So, oddly enough, but tattooing was always kind of an accident in my life.
But then you would have had to shift towards ZBrush and all this digital sculpting.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would have just been flying out to live. You would have been doing other people's stupid toy ideas and stuff like that.
which I'm so glad that I still can say I know how to do one thing in Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome.
So yeah, thank you, tattooing.
Yay! So who would you say some of the major influences are for your style?
For tattooing, I guess definitely Ethel.
Ethel,
yeah. He's one of my favorites. And then, Lars or Lose Lips, definitely one of my influential. Tiny Miss Becca, Emily Rosemary, all the new, the original OG neo-traditional artists that I was interested or introduced to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Lars Uwe. I've heard some fun stories about that guy.
Yeah. I know, he actually just got an Instagram.
Oh, did he? Oh, man.
Recently, within the last week.
I'm going to have to follow that because that'll be fun. Those guys have influenced your styles on the tattoo side. Is there any artists that you feel like outside of the tattoo world that you're really inspired by?
Well, I'm really bad with names in particular. I'm actually more inspired by design and textiles. I like the feelings of certain things. So, I collect pictures and images of fabrics and different textiles, as well as I like a lot of sculpture, like I mentioned before.
Yeah.
And then anything of the Art Deco kind of period, as far as lines, I guess you could say.
Right.
So I'm very much into lines.
Nice.
So. Yeah.
So are you one of those artists that's like you have to have lines all throughout your tattoo, or else your tattoos will fall apart?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The more lines, the better. Probably too much sometimes. I've actually gotten to this point, I think, in my age and in my career where I'm less concerned about, I want these tattoos to look as good as possible.
Yeah.
Of course, I have my own drive and I want to get better and I want to draw more, but at the same time, I'm more okay now than I was before allowing things to slide if my client wants it.
Right.
Because it's more of an understanding that it's not my job. It's my job to educate and to give my professional advice, but at the end of the day, I want to give that person what they want.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I'm more likely to be like, well, if you want it that small, okay.
I also read that you used to work at Art Machine in Philly. Was that with Tim?
I did. Yeah, Tim. I loved him. He's great.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's a weirdo.
I like hearing all his little rants and stuff. So how long were you there?
Let's see. I think I was there for 2 years. 2 years? Yeah, 2 years. I got there right around after the first year he opened, and Mike Chambers was just leaving, and then I was there for about maybe a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
And then I left because I was diagnosed with cancer, and I went through cancer treatment, and that kind of just took me away from tattooing for a while, and I didn't know when I was going to be able to come back and making money, so. Yeah.
That's another topic I'd like to delve into, if you're okay with that, is talking a little bit about the cancer thing. So
I'm about to be 5 years cancer-free in January.
That's awesome. Congratulations. I can imagine that having this thought in your head that there's a potential for you not to be living much longer, and then all of a sudden you get that life and you're like, holy crap, that's a pretty amazing gift.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's definitely kind of something that is a lot more character building. And it's interesting because, I never really knew how to put it into words as much as I read another, cancer survivor I think it was like a blog that he said that he always felt kind of guilty because so many people would say to him, "You're so strong, you beat cancer," and his thoughts were always like, "I didn't do anything.
Right.
I just sat there while this team of amazing, incredible doctors did everything for me,"
Yeah.
And that sentiment is something that I can relate to so much because, like, yes, you go through all of these, like one thing that it does for you is it very quickly sorts out your priorities. It very, very, very quickly shifts what's important in your life and what's not. And I think that that's a great gift regardless. But there was always that kind of feeling where, I mean, there is a lot of like personal fight that you have to put into it. But my biggest battle was just being seen in the first place because I didn't have health care at the time.
Right.
And it was right when Obamacare kicked in, like literally the same month. So the healthcare system in the country was a complete wreck, and people didn't even know how to enter you into a computer system without an insurance number. And so just being seen was like my biggest hurdle. That required a lot of bureaucratic phone calls, lost paperwork, found paperwork, faxing paperwork, just to be seen. And then once that happened, like, treatment was just like, you just go down the chute and you're doing what everybody is telling you to do, and then it's over.
Yeah.
And then they're like, all right, you're cancer-free, see ya.
Did you,
you're like, what
did
the
you have to go
fuck
through
just
chemo?
happened? No, I did not.
Okay.
I had an aggressive form of cervical cancer, so they had to remove everything. And so I did, luckily, because I was in Philadelphia, one of the best minimally invasive cervical cancer or gynecological cancer surgeons is in my area. So I had 2 operations with a Da Vinci machine. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
It's basically a huge robot that does surgery on you.
Wow.
So my surgeon is in another room, and the whole thing is remote control.
Oh my God.
And then there's a surgeon and assistant and an anesthesiologist with me, and there's 5 incisions in my abdominal area, and then there's 5 robotic arms that go in me, and then they work microscopically to remove everything and sew everything and cauterize everything inside.
Holy mackerel.
It's insane.
That's some futuristic shit right there, man.
Yeah, it's called the Da Vinci.
Wow. That's awesome.
And it looks like a giant spider.
So they went in there and they cut all this stuff out, and then that was it?
Mm-hmm. Well, then you have to wait for pathology. And funny enough, so my surgery is supposed to be about 4 hours, and they had to keep me on the table for 7, because normally what they do is when there's a surgical option, they remove the cancerous organ or tissue, and then they also harvest all of your lymph nodes in the area. So if anything's metastasizing, they'll find it within a lymph node dissection. So they send that off for pathology, and then we'll usually find within a week or 2 if they haven't seen any cancer anywhere else, if they found anything else. So, but when they had me on the table, my lymph nodes were covered in a blue and black substance.
Oh, no.
So they had never seen it before, so they rushed the pathology, and they kept me on the table until they found out what it was. And the pathologist was like, oh, it's just tattoo pigment.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've heard that before, but I've never actually had anybody who could, solidify that what I've heard. So that's pretty interesting. And so, Did you talk to him at all about that? Is that something that all of our lymph nodes have in them, or is it only lymph nodes close to a tattoo, or?
No, so it was all, like, they removed all of my pelvic lymph nodes, and I don't have any tattoos in that area that are heavy. Like, I have a lot of tattoos on my legs,
Right.
and a lot of my arms, my chest. I don't have anything, like, around my hips or my back, really, at the time. And so, after my surgery, my oncologist was like, so that was really weird. And I was like, yeah, what's that about? And she was like, honestly, I don't know, because I have done surgery on a lot of heavily tattooed people, and we've never seen that before.
Oh.
And so I was like, that's interesting. So we kind of like hypothesized that maybe it's because I've had a lot of cover-up work, so there's more pigment going into my lymphatic system than not,
Right.
rather than like, so like inks being pushed into my body through cover-up work rather than like laser removal, which is blasting it apart and then being cycled through your lymphatic system, because I've never had that done.
Right. And then also with laser, they're making the particles a lot smaller, so it probably can push through.
So it's easier.
Yeah.
I mean, they say, I guess, I'm not sure. I actually spoke to a laser tech recently, and they couldn't really answer if it's something that your body flushes out or if it just stays in your liver.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I can expect. I mean, I suspect that there's a lot of information about that stuff that we're not going to know for a little while. Hence the whole FDA trying to get involved and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's nuts. So you said it was cervical cancer. So usually that's kind of just in case there's other women out there. It's a lot of times it can be stimulated by an HPV virus or something, right?
It can be, and up until the adventure, up until the 1970s in the Pap smear, it was the #1 cause of death for women worldwide.
Wow. 1970s. Holy mackerel.
Yeah, most people don't realize that worldwide, #1 cause are over heart disease or anything else.
Wow.
Because cervical cancer has no symptoms until it's in its latent stages, and it can be a very slow progressing cancer until it reaches a certain stage, and then it kind of is everywhere. And so, like in my case, I had stage 2B, so each cancer is staged differently. So like a breast cancer would be staged differently than a cervical cancer, which is staged differently than a bone cancer or like a lung cancer. There are 1s, 2s, 3s, and then 4. But then like with cervical cancer, there's also A, B, and C. So the amount of cancer I had was about the size of a pen tip. But the second stage was a softball.
Whoa.
So it just goes like poof. And so the type that I had was pretty aggressive. So even after my surgeries, my pathology went before a board of oncologists where they decide at that point if they're going to recommend chemotherapy after my surgeries, just in case.
Wow.
Which at that point I decided that if that was the recommendation, then that's when I would seek like a second or third opinion. But at the time they said, no, not at this time. And so just for the first 3 years, I went every 2 months for testings.
Wow.
And then we switched to every 4 months and then every 6 months. And now I'm at 5 years, about to reach 5 years this year.
That's so awesome. So what was it that made you want to go see the doctors to, was there any symptoms or?
No, this is going to sound crazy. My dog, hindsight's 2020, and it was kind of a coincidence maybe, but I've had my dog, Nook, he'll be 11 now in September, and I've had him since he was 8 weeks. And at the time, he just got very interested in every time I got up off of the seat.
Right.
Like I was sitting in a chair or the couch or on the bed, I would get up and he would just be like on it, sniffing like crazy, and I just thought he was developing a weird dog habit.
Right.
Being a chick, sometimes it's like, no, it's that time of month, but it was like, no, nothing's wrong, what are you doing? You're being a creep.
Yeah.
So I thought he was just being a creep. And then about a month later, I actually read an article in the Huffington Post about women who swore that their dogs had alerted them to certain kinds of cancers: ovarian cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer. University was saying, yeah, actually dogs can smell cancer, and we're trying to figure out exactly what it is that they're sniffing so that maybe we can train them. So they were doing all these tests, and the whole article was about that, about how in like a room of different options, dogs will identify the cancer out of different samples every single time.
Wow.
And so I did not think that that was what was happening at the moment. It was just like, oh, it's been a while, I should go. And then I went, and then it was an immediate, like, something's wrong, pathology, by like a biopsy, you have cancer. And then, you know, the whole thing spun. And then as soon as my surgeries happened, he stopped.
Wow.
And then that's when I was like, huh. So that was kind of what happened.
Yeah, I definitely remember reading something about how dogs could do that. They could smell cancer, which I thought was nuts. And then I also met this girl at the Apple store, and she had this thing where she would like pass out randomly. So she had a dog with her who's been with her forever, and apparently whenever she's about to pass out, like 60 seconds before she's about to pass out, the dog will kind of jump on her and start like giving her a lot of attention. And so she was at work, and she's like, hey, if the dog jumps on me, then I just need to go to the back and lay down quick before I pass out. I just thought that was so amazing that these dogs have that sense in them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I ended up having another surgery a year later due to internal bleeding. And that was definitely another situation that my dog, like I because of my surgery, and I had a robotic abdominal surgery, like my whole insides were kind of messed up. And so things like if I eat certain foods, they become really painful. And I don't know if you've ever had like really bad intestinal gas, like that pain that's like just so debilitating.
Yeah.
And so it felt like that, but I wasn't sure. And then he immediately was like all over my stomach, and it ended up being that I had internal bleeding.
Oh, goodness. Hey, man, that's awesome. How old is your dog?
Huh?
How old is your dog?
He's 11 now.
Oh, what type of dog is it?
He's an Australian Shepherd mix.
Oh, I have no idea what that is. Is it like a German Shepherd mixed with an Australian Shepherd?
Yeah, he's like, I could show you, but he'd start crying.
No, I don't want him to start crying.
He's very cute. He's like black and fluffy.
You can send me a picture of it, and then if we end up putting this segment in the interview, then we could flash it up on the screen or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow, that's pretty fucking awesome, man. That's great. And I'm sure having him around, knowing that he's kind of looking out for you at all times, and now that you're attentive of it, is pretty rad.
He makes me a little paranoid.
Oh, right.
Sometimes, because he's getting senile. He's getting older. So when he starts acting weird, I'm like, are you having a senior moment, or are you telling me something?
Right. Do I have cancer again, or
I know.
internal bleeding, or yeah. I guess on that note, yeah, it would be a little stimulate a little bit of paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to ask you: have you taught before?
Like taught tattoo, like taught how?
Have you taught a class? Anything?
I guess I have. I used to teach like middle school students when I was in high school.
Oh, that's cool.
So I don't know if that counts.
Wow. Hey, I mean, I think that being on the other side of the classroom gives you a different perspective on being a student. And, you know, I think that obviously the more practice you can get, the easier it is to have that seat within the class.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you plan on teaching at the Richmond Tattoo and Arts Academy?
Well, I would really like to teach something involving the wonderful concept of composition within tattooing.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking a lot about how I can best describe it, and I think that one of the things that I found from being like a host with Angels, the other show that Inkmaster did, was that, and within Inkmaster in general, is that composition is something that a lot of people kind of leave to the wayside. You know what I mean? Like, they're more people or artists in general, especially tattooers, are more concerned with their technical skills and super smooth blends and their colors and all their sharp, clean, crystalline work. But then what kind of falls to the back ass end of the whole process is making a tattoo just look good overall. And so you can look at a tattoo and say, hey, that's a really well done tattoo, but why does it look so bad? And that's where composition comes from, and a lot of that can come from having good reference and using good reference. And I think in the tattoo community in general, we don't talk about reference very much because it's kind of a little bit of a taboo subject, because there's so much emphasis on being original and that everything has to come directly from your own mind and your own hand and everything else. You know, when as artists, we from the beginning of art time have been using each other's work to be inspired and to create, and then also to study and to learn and to become better artists.
Right. Yeah. No, I definitely. I was just talking to Gary Villarreal. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's one of the other presenters at the Academy. Super amazing artist. But he was kind of talking about reference the same way. It's like it seems like people are, it's like a taboo thing, but. Reference, and I guess it depends on how you use it, if you and what you're doing. If you're a photorealistic artist, obviously reference is very important. But if you're drawing out of your head, reference is good for learning how light hits something or how the body moves or whatever, so it can be a good complement to what you're already doing.
And I think that that's something to be said about learning and teaching and having these classes is that, there are the technical aspects of tattooing, but then with art in general, like you do need to have those kind of like pathways set so that you can learn specifically and get good at these things that then allow you to have those tools in your belt. So when you move on, okay, I can use this, I can use this, I can use this, and it just makes your work better and better and better.
Yeah.
When you presented me with the opportunity to kind of teach a class, it's one of the very first things in a long time that I was like, absolutely, because I love the idea of at least just having these open debates and discussions with other artists about, about learning and continuing to grow as artists, because that's what's important. And the only way that we're going to continue to keep up with our industry growing the way that it is to continue to teach and to, demand better from everybody.
Yeah.
Like we set the standards, all of us. You know what I mean? Like we set the standards in our, what we're worth and our time, and like every single person in the industry contributes to that.
Sure.
And so even though they say like a rising tide raises all boats, it's still going to be how much work you put into it. That's going to make what you get out of it. I love learning. I'm open to new things. I like new technologies. I mean, art and, art's art, tattooing's tattooing. They're the same, but they're also different. There's just, I don't know, it's just an interesting time to be a tattoo artist.
Well, I also found early in my career that the people who put up the most friction in trying to help me move forward were the ones who weren't as talented. It's always the artists who aren't intimidated by you are the ones that are going to help you out the most, and the ones that are most intimidated by you are the ones that are going to hold you back. So I think that at least when I started tattooing, I think there was a lot of, not just against me, but against this whole like artists moving into the tattoo world, there was a lot of friction from the people who weren't really into art, they just like tattoos. And I think that struggle is still there a little bit, but it's not as prevalent as it used to be. Well, that's awesome. Well, I want to thank you for meeting with me.
Thank you. I hope I answered great questions and didn't just ramble about nonsense.
No, I think I probably talk too much. I feel like that's always been my concern with having these interviews is talking too much and allowing the person who's talking to talk.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm super looking forward to seeing you at the show. And
yeah, me too.
I'm excited to hopefully show you a tattoo convention that's a little bit different than all the tattoo conventions you've been to.
I would love that. That'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you in 59 days.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Gia Rose, and I can't wait to see you at the Richmond Tattoo Arts Academy. Hi, my name is Gia Rose, and I can't wait to see you at the Richmond Tattoo Arts Academy.